Heavenly howdies, I'm M. Rectum, damn near killed him, Cypher, and this month I thought I'd take a look at a group that somehow I've not featured in all the years I've been doing these themed monthly updates. It's the Autobot's very own Suicide Squad, the Wreckers. Now, I'm not going to talk much about the media history of the various iterations of the team. Chris McFeely's already done quite an overview, go check that out. I'm going to keep the focus more toy-based, and part of that is noting how most sets of Wreckers are typically a grab bag of toy characters that haven't gotten much media time, if any. Well, when they're not just the original team all over again. This lack of media focus does tend to have the side effect of making the average Wrecker very likely to die, quite violently, after a not very long service. So let's get into it before something tragic happens to these guys, alright? The original Wreckers hail from the UK Marvel Comics, and the bulk of the team is made up of Autobot toys that weren't in the cartoon, and subsequently not in the US comic. Deluxe Autobots Whirl and Roadbuster were skipped because those toys were from Bandai, a direct competitor to Deluxe Autobots Whirl and Roadbuster were skipped because those toys came from Bandai, who were in direct competition with Takara in Japan, so yeah, good reason not to be in the show that's also going to air in Japan. The Jumpstarters Topspin and Twin Twist weren't used because... I have no idea why. They're Takara molds from the Diaclone line like most Transformers were. They both got animation models that ultimately went unused. But for whatever reason, they never showed up in the cartoon at all. Which is weird when you consider that the whole point of the cartoon was to sell toys to kids, and frankly, they needed all the help they could get. Topspin turns into a sci-fi air skiff thing, and like Twin Twist, has a pullback motor that sends him rocketing forward, then automatically flipping up to land on his feet in robot mode. Well, ideally at least. There's a little lever on the back of the noggin that actually adjusts the pretty complicated physics of the gimmick to hopefully make it work better. Personally, I've rarely had a problem with it not working, but your mileage may vary. Initial releases of Topspin had DAR printed on its wing stickers, a holdover from his days as a Diaclone Bakutan attack robo. Later releases of the toy changed the stickers, removing the letters and running the red stripe all the way through. And as intimated prior, he and Twin Twist were notorious shelf warmers, even before most people knew what a shelf warmer was. Hell, there's a shop not far from me where I can buy both of them, complete with the original boxes and inserts, for $40 a pop. Yeah, not a lot of demand. Maybe if they had a cool adventure in the cartoon, things might have been different, but even that probably wouldn't be enough to counter just how many of these things got shipped out. The second incarnation of the Wreckers comes to us from the 3H era of BotCon, which gave the team its distinctive hammer-based insignia. And boy oh boy is it an eclectic group. A mix of existing retail toys, some BotCon exclusives, and concepts for future exclusives that never happened. Can't say they weren't ambitious. One character that managed to make it all the way through the stories intact is Ramulus. Okay, I know that says Longhorn, and yes, this toy came out at retail long after 3H lost the license and the Wreckers comics went into limbo. So here's the story. The original Transmetal 2 Ramulus toy... Okay, you know what? I'd written a whole thing about this mold's deco history and how it tied in with the 3H comics bumpy production, how 3H had like 3 different unfinished titles going all at once, and then years later FunPub picked up one of them and blah 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 blah. But as I stare down the barrel of recording it, I ain't know that any of us really want to go through all that here. So I'm just going to jump to the end where a Collectors Club comic had a flashback to the unwritten end of the Universe comic storyline, which showed the Ramulus mold in these colors. Then years later the Facebook edition of Aspector Prime said, yeah, that's actually Ramulus again, he just took a new name along with the new colors. Which, okay, fair, most characters change color in Universe. Head to the wiki for the full story on that whole thing if you're feeling punchy. Did you know there was a Shattered Glass iteration of the Wreckers? Of course there was. And they're proof that certain narrative conventions can be a force stronger than even the Shattered Multiverse's reality mirroring effect. Has come our first exposure to the Shattered Glass Wreckers. They all did. Well, except one. But oh, the one that lived. Shattered Glass Rodimus. My beautiful bastard boy. This BotCon exclusive is a redeco of Classics Rodimus in black plastic with just a hint of embedded sparkle for extra panache. sold as part of an at-show-only souvenir pack with morality-flipped Megatron and Dive Bomb. The toy has a flip-out buzzsaw in its left forearm, a callback to the Transformers the movie, and that got the gears turning. So when it was Trent and I's turn at the fiction, we had his left hand replaced with the buzzsaw, without his consent, at the first opportunity. 'Cause why not? He is a delightful scumbag, and I love him and enjoy when he suffers just as much as when he succeeds. The records have largely remained a footnote in the scattered shattered glass fiction in the following years, which, well, okay. I'm happy Rodimus remains a go-to for references in later toys, though. He's got the power, he's got the goatee. And now we come to the one you know we had to hit, Last Stand of the Wreckers. While it's not the first time the Wreckers show up in the original IDW continuity, it is unquestionably the Wreckers having story with the biggest impact in fan response, and a major highlight of the entire 13-year run on those comics. Just read it. It's good. And it held true to the spirit of the original team, with a bunch of toys who'd been barely used at best in the decades prior, with 3 of them also being toys that were only released in European markets for that extra UK flavor. So, spoiler alert for a 15-year-old comic series, let's look at a new toy of the first Wrecker to bite it in the story, Rotorstorm. Available only in the Generation Selects add-on line, this new head retool of Siege Spinister approximates the original toy's deco pretty well. There's a fake cockpit chest, and the guns are decoed to reference the original spring-loaded, non-US choking hazard test passing missile launchers. That is a long thing to... why do I write things like that? Initial stock images of the toy showed him with Spinister's head, but that was quickly changed to show the real, original toy-inspired noggin the final release has, making it the only time Rotorstorm got lucky concerning his head. As an aside, the original Rotorstorm is one of the few European market Transformers I never got a hold of. Otherwise, I almost certainly would have done a pic of that one by now. Really not fond of using scans of tiny photos from books. While the Wreckers as a group didn't really play much of a role in Transformers Prime, mainly being backstory, that backstory was fundamental to one of its major characters, warring warrior scientist Wheeljack, who is represented here by his second Cyberverse scaled toy, the miniature line for use with playsets and whatnot, also just being a cheaper option for kids who want the characters but got limited allowances. The original show deco version of this mold came with a toy of his jackhammer spaceship that unfolds into a playset. This version was an individual release, and that deco? Well, the original Diaclone Lancia Stratos toy that would become Wheeljack in 1984 came in 2 decos based on real-world racing livery, with the other being based on a car sponsored by Marlboro, the cigarette company. Yet even in the 80s, they were not going to make that a goddamn toy for children in the US. There's a whole story behind the Marlboro Wheeljack and its path to becoming an official Transformers character, and I'll likely get into all of that at some point in the future. But for now, I will note that this is the first time that deco was referenced on a Wheeljack toy, so that's fun. When the Wreckers made the jump to the live-action movies, of course they were considerably different. But you know what? I'm more than fine with how they turned out. A trio of rowdy race car redneck mechanics who just go medieval on Decepticons with NASCAR alt modes that can also explode into Mad Maxian war wagons? I dig it. A lot. Really wish they'd done more, well, anything in the movie. Why was them taking down the monstrous DevCon a 3-second background visual? That's a whole freaking action sequence right there. Right, toys. So let's take a gander at Roadbuster from the Studio Series line, the most screen-accurate transforming iteration of the bot you can hope for. He feels a little under-weaponed in robot mode compared to his teammates, but I think that's mainly because his toys from the Dark of the Moon line usually had a chainsaw that was in his concept art, but didn't make it into the final film. Honestly wish they'd have given him one anyway. They gave Leadfoot a whole pet that wasn't in the movie. Also, Studio Series is the first time all 3 Wreckers were made available at the same scale and in the same alt mode configuration. Every price point throughout the Dark of the Moon toy line, either one of them was missing from the assortment, or all 3 were available but they'd be a mix of battle mode and non-battle mode car forms. Hell, in Hasbro's markets, the only size you can get all 3 of them at all was in Cyberverse scale. Frustrating. When Simon Furman was tapped to write Regeneration 1, a sequel to the Marvel comic that didn't lead into the 90s Generation 2 comic, why? Of course one of the first things he did was bring over the Wreckers, the classic Generation 1 lineup, but with 2 curious changes. 1, Cup was now part of the crew, as he was in other IDW stories, and 2, he added Generation 2's Rotoforce Autobot Leadfoot. I guess because synergy with the recent Dark of the Moon trio? Topspin, Roadbuster, so Leadfoot, who would then later get a toy in the Amazon exclusive Wreck and Rule collection many years later. Sadly without even a cursory imitation of the rotor weapon gimmick, but honestly, G2 original characters getting toys at all is a minor miracle, so I'll take what I can get. He's a new sculled version of Earthrise Mirage, and of course shares that mold's weird thing where the shoulder-mounted missile launcher accessory can't actually shoulder mount. Man, I'm sounding way more down on this toy than I actually am. I'm genuinely really happy to have this one. Also, the leg transformation is a huge pain in the ass. The severely underrated IDW reboot continuity had its own take on the Wreckers, complete with a new symbol, and it was certainly an interesting go of it. More of a covert ops in plain sight deal, this was also a completely new batch of Wreckers without any characters who were in previous iterations. Mostly. There's the aforementioned Leadfoot. In fact, his appearance in the story kinda gave away that there was a toy coming. But the other was part of the team from the beginning, and the guy we're looking at now, the Generation Selects exclusive Siege Hotshot. He's a redeco and new noggin go with the Siege Hound toy, evoking the original Cybertron Defense Hotshot toy from the, Cybertron toy line. Siege had the fantastic combat system, an acronym I do not feel like looking up to see what it stands for. It was probably really forced. Which means Hotshot's rifle, non-firing missile launcher, and the not-a-spare tire thing can combine into a big gun, combine with other guns, mount on the numerous 5mm post holes all over Siege toys, etc. A system still in use today without any special nomenclature, and good. I love that play pattern. And if you're wondering when Hotshot was ever a wrecker before this, the Prime Incarnation, in a BotCon live script reading story I co-wrote with Trent Troop back in 2013. And wrapping this up, once in a blue moon, the modern toy line blesses us with an all-new character. And if we're lucky, they're a great toy with a great name. Because apparently bios are too much to ask for anymore. And boy oh boy did this all-new character from the Amazon Wreck and Rule collection deliver. The mighty Masterdominus is a heavy retooling of the Kingdom Fossilizer Ractonite, the bulky bony bot now transforming into an absolutely menacing mastodon skeleton. The black and gold give off a delightful mix of tar pit and royalty vibes, and maybe just a hint of Leather Daddy. I mean, with that name, come on. And being a fossilizer, he breaks apart into pieces that can be reassembled into weapons and armor for other bots to wear, thanks to ample 3mm posts and holes. He came packaged with the already covered Leadfoot, which made this set a must-have for me. A fantastic addition to the Wreckers. A+, no notes. That's just a brief look at some of the toys to make it to Wreckerdom over 40 years. Their ranks are surprisingly expansive in places. Who do you think would make a good Wrecker, and just how awful should their demi-inevitable death be? Leave a death note in the comments. If you enjoyed this video and the wiki work I do, you can support it by liking the video, and help me even further by joining my Patreon. Every little bit helps, just a once-a-month charge, and at the higher pledge tier you can help pick a theme for the next big monthly update. And be sure to check out the channel for my weekly wiki shorts featuring new pics of toys just added to the wiki. Subscribe to not miss a one. Perhaps when I hit a subscriber milestone there'll be a special video? Thank you again, and see you, hopefully sooner, next time!